Hey guys, we're out here at the Westhaven Golf Club just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in Franklin, Tennessee, as part of our winter tour. As we told you, we want to bring you the best of the best, and today again we're doing that with Ben Pellicani. Ben is a Golf Digest top young teacher in America. He's also one of Golf Digest top teachers in the state of Tennessee. And one thing I want you guys to check out here before you watch this video or after is CogornoGolf.com. That's our online community membership full of golfers like you and I looking to get better. It's where you can send your swing videos in. It's where we can work together over the winter months. As a member of CogornoGolf.com, you get access to our Facebook group where you can post your swing up, and myself and the coaches at CogornoGolf.com will give you feedback, priorities to work on, and drills to do over the winter months. You also get access to everything on our site and all of our master classes. Would love for you guys to check it out. Would love to help you improve. We'll put a link down in the description down below. All right, Mr. Ben, thanks for coming out with us today.
Absolutely, excited.
Appreciate you being here. So we're going to talk today in this video about the starting point to hitting a draw, which I already kind of let the little trick out of the secret out that we're going to talk about depth, right, during the backswing. And so hitting a draw, right, and getting the depth during the backswing. Let's talk about why that's important and some checkpoints for them, what depth is, why we should be doing it, and then we'll go through the process of some really cool drills that you have that the players can use to improve that depth.
Yeah, you know, I was fortunate enough to start my teaching career and work for a guy named Mike Bender, and so a lot of these drills are
maybe they heard of that guy.
Yeah, you know, he's okay. So, you know, kind of using a lot of what I've learned from him and leveraging a lot of the knowledge and watching him work with players. And what I think is interesting is when we talk about depth, this is not like the guy who shoots 100 problem, right? This is from tour players to juniors to adults to seniors. So depth is important for everybody. And the analogy I like to use is if I was going to go throw a ball, right, I'd never throw it from my ear. I'd never throw it from above my head. I would create some depth or some separation. I'd get that ball behind me. And so the way I define depth and the way that kind of Mike kind of, you know, mentored me to kind of help people understand this is go ahead and get in your setup. Depth is the amount of distance your hands have traveled behind you. So if you looked at a line straight up off the butt end of the club at address, and then go ahead and take the club back to the top of your swing. At the top of your swing, if we dropped another line off the butt end of the club, that distance that has traveled is called depth. And so the checkpoint that we like to use is if I drop a line down from the butt end of the club, is it at or near or behind your heels?
Heel line.
Yeah, the heels at the top. And, you know, can you create too much depth? The answer is maybe. But I would say for the average guy who works at a desk and travels in a car too much, it's pretty hard to create too much. Now, there's a handful of junior golfers, you know, maybe some tour players who are hypermobile that we got to talk about that. But I don't see a lot of, you know, of your average guys who create too much depth.
No, and to me, I would look at depth as like money, right? It's like you want more of it, right? If you get to the point where you have so much of it, it's a problem, kind of tackle that when you get there, right? But depth across the board, if you looked at 100 random golfers would be good, and having more for most players would be better than less. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think the way you get depth is important too. And so, you know, we're going to show you some drills now and help you understand how to create what I call real depth and not false depth. And so, and before we do that, and I love that, real depth versus false depth, how about checkpoint? So the butt of the club, right, at the top, as I'm turning, wants to be on. If I drew a straight line down there, heel line would be like, hey, you have sufficient depth. Yeah, that's kind of the checkpoint. And then, you know, some of the other checkpoints I like to use and again, you're gonna have to have a good camera position to do this. And I like the camera right on the hand line, down the line that your feet are aiming, not where you think you're aiming, but, you know, actually down your toe line there. And so as you take it back to club parallel, from that camera angle, do we see the hand starting to blend into the thigh? Too often I see these hands way out here, and I see this space between your thigh and the club. And so when you see that space, right, we've started the process of not getting depth.
So this would be bad. A lot of space between my hands, club, and thigh. What would be good? That's a really good checkpoint. What would be good would be to start to get the hands blending in with the thigh.
Absolutely. And then from the next kind of spot, and there's kind of 3 good checkpoints here. That's the first one. The second one is when your hands or in your left arm get to be parallel to the ground. Do your hands bisect your bicep?
How am I looking there? Is that pretty good? Feels good? Feels deep?
So if you think about it, you can be in a really good spot here, but you could drift up. Right? And so have you continued to get deeper? And then obviously that last checkpoint we already talked about is at the top of our swing is, you know, if we draw a line down the butt end of the club. And so if you look at those 3 spots, it's a gradual move. But I think most importantly, you're using your pivot to do that. Right? You know, what I see a lot of times with people is when they stand here and I said get deep, they might just do this. Right? And so when you turn, if I just kept my arms against my chest and I turned, my hands would naturally start arcing in and I'd start creating some depth.
So the hands work in primarily due to the body turning.
Yeah, and so the other thing that's great about that is when we get that pivot creating the depth, we've now created a good stable top of our swing. If you do it with just your arms, right, that's not a very strong position. Right? I would never throw a ball doing this, right? Like it just wouldn't be very good. So again, using your pivot to create the depth, I think is a starting point. And so I think, you know, the first drill we can show you to do that is one we can do inside.
Let's do that drill in a moment, and you explained that so good and clear, but I want to just reconfirm those pieces for everyone watching. The goal here for us as a starting point to create a draw is that we want to get depth. We define that as where the butt of the club is from setup to the top, getting from where it starts to somewhere near our heel line. To get to that process along the way, I want to do that primarily with my body, not my arms and hands pulling behind me. And 3 simple checkpoints would be my hands blending into my thigh, in line with my right bicep, and then the butt of the club on the heel line.
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay, thank you. So we have a really good, you have a really good, I've never done this before, a wall drill that we'll show here in a second to get started. All right, Ben, so let's talk about how to do this wall drill for depth. I have a wall here behind me.
Real simple. And so the cool part about this drill is you can do it anywhere, right? You know, if you're the type of guy who has to travel a lot for work, you know, what a great thing to do in your hotel room, right? Or if you're on that conference call and you got that headset on, and you can even do a little bit of it there. So all you need is a wall. So the way this drill works is pretty simple. What you're gonna do is you're gonna get in your golf posture, act like you're holding on to a golf club there for me, and you're gonna get your backside just off or barely touching the wall.
Okay, so butt just off or just touching?
Yeah, so again, the goal here is not to lean against the wall, right? It's just to barely touch it.
Got it.
And so now what we did is we put that club by your hip there just to kind of use that reference point, right, of how do we turn and maybe create a small gap there. So as you turn and try to touch this wall, there's a couple keys we want to kind of touch on. Number 1, you know, we want to make sure we create that gap with that club. Number 2, you want to feel like you're loading into that trail leg. I see some people try to cheat this drill. And then number 3, how high on the wall can you get? And so this drill is good for depth, but it's also good for that width. That's how far your arms get away from your body. And so, you know, we talked about that butt end of the club checkpoint at the top of your swing. If your hands get to that wall, the butt end of your club is for sure behind your heels.
So I'm trying to big picture as I'm doing this, get my hands to touch the wall, obviously it's the main point, but I'm trying to get them up the wall, right? I'm trying to get as high as
as high as we can. And for some of you out there, you're gonna feel a really hard stretch the first couple times you do this. So even if you just view this drill as a good golf stretch, right? That's a great way to do it. And we talked a little bit about false depth too. You know, we don't want these hands just going straight into the wall.
Got it.
Right? That doesn't do us any good in our golf swing.
And I'm feeling as I'm doing this like I'm using my core. I feel my lower body turning. I feel me working in towards my heel to be able to create the depth. And I definitely feel a stretch relative to normal. What I really love about this drill is it's hard to not get great feedback from it, right? Like get to the wall, have the wall right on your butt line, get as high up the wall as you can, and from the face-on angle, creating a little bit of space between your trail leg and the club.
Yeah, and again, the great part is there are no excuses why you couldn't do this drill.
Love it, awesome, perfect. Okay, so now we understand how to do the wall drill and start to train that inside. How do we take that back outside then?
Well, and again, it's these feedback tools, right? And we got to have ways of knowing if we did it right or wrong without a teacher sitting there.
We have to have ways of knowing if we did it right or wrong without a teacher there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, and so, to me...
Can you say the word feedback?
Yeah.
One more time?
Yeah,
perfect.
It's all about feedback, right?
Yeah.
And again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to gain feels, right, of proper golf swings. And I think too often people just try to make a good golf swing and try to get like a feel off of that, right? You have to know, like, yes, that is a good golf swing and that's the feel I'm going to go for. Because most of the time when I do this drill with someone the first time, they go, no way that's right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you've already alluded to this a little bit, but like, video yourself.
Yes.
Right? Because here's the thing, it can't be that the majority of tour players are doing it wrong.
That's right.
Right?
Not possible.
There's a reason why they're the ones trying to pay the bills.
Yes.
Right? And the luxury for them is they get to pay very nice bills when they're on tour. But there's a reason why all these guys do it, right? And now that we've used our turn, now that we have turned and touched that wall, right?
Yep.
And we've talked about, hey, we can touch that wall as high as we want, but we want to get to that wall because that wall's behind our heels.
Yep.
We now are in a position now to come from the inside.
Yep.
Right? So go ahead and get set up. And so what I did is I put a reminder tee down for us.
Yep.
And again, this is, I'm kind of taking this one from Mike. This is kind of like a staple drill of his. But what we're going to do is we're just going to put a shaft. And these are just 2 broken clubs. There's nothing special about this.
Yep.
And I always love it when people say, hey, I don't have that. I say, well, you have a Play It Again Sports or a yard sale around you. Go find the cheapest clubs you have, chop the heads off, and cut a noodle in half, and you got it. So
actionable.
Yeah,
no
maybe $2 worth of inventory here, right?
Yep.
So go ahead and get set up. What I'm going to do, kind of even with the outside part of your right foot, roughly a foot off the ball in target line, I'm going to put a shaft right over top of your trail shoulder, which is your right shoulder. And so what happens here is if you go ahead and turn, if you were to lift your arms, you would hit that noodle. So again, this kind of gives us insight of, did we get deep enough in the golf swing?
So when you set this up, right, just to clarify, from this angle, it's kind of right-ish off of the edge of my right foot. It's about a foot-ish outside of the ball. And so relative to the ball, it looks to me like it's on like a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, approximately. And then you're going to put it right over. The cool part about this drill is, let's say we were going to switch clubs and give you driver. You would just take this and flatten it down a little bit.
So it's always just over my trail shoulder.
Yeah, it's always over your trail shoulder. And so what that allows you to do is, I hear things where guys say, well, that's a great drill, but how do I do it with driver?
Yeah.
Right? Because what we see a lot is guys don't get deep enough with their driver.
And so what I can feel is this gives me the same sort of depth sensations that I would get with a wall drill, right? And I can take this and do this outside. And if I have something else, I can put this into the ground. It's super easy. And that's just a really easy checkpoint right over my trail shoulder. Now, as I'm going through and I'm doing this, just to reconfirm, I love the checkpoint. So me going through my thigh, I feel more and more as I'm doing this, and you tell me if this is right. For me to create that depth, and as I'm hitting these checkpoints, I feel a good amount of hip turn. I feel some core engagement. What I definitely don't feel is my arm sucking back, but I do feel my right hip and my belt buckle turning back to create this first motion and continuing to turn as I get up to the top. Are those some simple?
Yeah, and in a good way, another really good checkpoint is if you film from face on. What we like to do, if we put a line on the screen, was to put one right by your right hip. And as you turn back, you're going to see a small gap created there. And the reason that happens is if I just took my hips and I was standing straight up and down, right?
Yep.
And all I did was turn. Like I didn't do anything else but turn.
Yep.
Standing straight up and down, I'd create a small gap right there. So as you're doing this, create that gap, and again, you can do that with the wall drill at home. What we don't want to do in this is lean left.
Got it.
And I can see some players who kind of take this the wrong way. you know, ultimately the reason we're getting deep is to allow us to come from the inside, right? So that's the purpose of getting deep.
Yeah.
And so if someone says, hey, you know, I only get to my ankle, is that a problem? I would say, well, just know you might not be able to get as far from the inside, or you might have to compensate to do it. And so, you know, what's cool about this drill is I've had, you know, 70, 80-year-old players in here, and they go, well, I can only go up to about shoulder high to do this. And I go, well, if you want to hit a draw, right, why don't we just do that?
Absolutely.
Right? Because at the end of the day, a ball that's hit solid goes a lot further than a ball that isn't.
What I love that you said before, which I'm going to touch into before we're done, but even there, is the whole point of this is that I want to make this as easy and efficient as possible with the least amount of compensations.
Absolutely.
And so what we're saying is when you get the depth as you work back, that's what we're doing. I also love that you said before that as I'm doing this, my goal is to make the correct movement and take a feel from that, not have a feel and try and make the correct movement, right? Like a little subtle difference.
Absolutely. And so when you're out there training, right, what I would do is I'd hit a ball or two in the station, and then I'd step right out and hit a ball outside the station. And you know you're doing it right when the misses in the shape of the shot match up in and out of the station.
Love that.
Right? So if you're in the station and your miss is a straight push to a good looking little baby draw, and then you step out of the station and your miss is a pull, you go, wait, those two misses don't set up.
Such a good little feedback tip there.
Right? And so the other thing I would do is when you step back into the station, I think that first ball is so important. Because if you feel like you have to do something to compensate or to make the drill effective, that's probably the feel you need outside the station.
Got it. Oh, so many little bombs in there, Ben. That was good. So why don't I try one here? Yeah?
Yeah, go for it.
And so I'm trying to feel the same checkpoints. I'm feeling the depth via my turn. I'm trying to hit my checkpoints as I go. And when I'm doing this, I'm just kind of doing a little shorter, maybe slower one here to start with. And so that for me feels like I'm able to replicate the depth. Now, maybe I'm doing a couple with this. I might be having some video feedback. I do a couple without. Are you cool with, as I'm doing this, the video feedback with this, and then even when I take it away to confirm? Or would you prefer the video just with this portion?
I think the whole reason we're videoing, right, is to know that what you're doing is right. And so, again, the whole point is to create feels from proper golf swings. And you know it's a proper golf swing because you have feedback if you did it right or wrong. Right? And so as you sit there and you're doing this drill and you're trying to turn and touch the wall to get deep so we can have a starting position to come from the inside. Right? That this noodle is just giving us feedback on it.
Got it.
And so, you know, I had someone once say, well, am I deep enough? I said, well, did you hit the noodle? Right?
Let that answer your question.
Yeah, if you didn't hit the noodle, then you probably did pretty good.
If the station's set up properly, that should give you most of the feedback that you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So guys, depth during the backswing, the starting point to hitting the draw, the purpose of the depth so that you can swing from the inside during the downswing and have the least amount of compensations needed to get that draw pattern going. Two really simple feedback drills here to do inside and outside, and about 15 beautiful bombs you dropped in there on feedback and practice. So hopefully this helps. If you guys have any questions, as always, for Ben or myself, go ahead and leave a comment down below. And guys, follow Ben. He's got his website, Pelly Golf, and Pelly Golf on Instagram. I told him before we started, he's got so many good Instagram posts in there. Go follow him on Instagram. You guys are going to love it. Ben, thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video, do us a favor, click the like button down below. Click the notification bell. Also, please subscribe. Thank you guys.